Hello my soccer universe, my name is Roland and this is Football Talk. Let's wrap up what happened on Thursday, Friday and Saturday in World Cup qualifying. We have 3 more teams qualified from Europe. One of them is France, the team that I'm wearing, but also Croatia and Switzerland have already booked their tickets. Fortunately not Austria, it was so looking well at halftime of the Bosnia against Romania game. But they still have a pretty good chance of qualifying, so quite happy. We also have at least 2 teams that are quasi-qualified. What do you mean with quasi-qualified? Well, they have such an advantage. Or 3 teams that are quasi-qualified. They have such an advantage in goal difference that it seems this is unsurmountable. I'm talking, of course, Norway. Italy is not going to win 9-0 against them. Talking, of course, the Netherlands, there's a similar story. They will get even the point against Latvia at home. And then Spain, who also have a head-to-head against Turkey. They're not going to lose 7-0 at home to Turkey, especially such a terrific side as Spain. But then there are also some big nations that are, not looking so pretty and that have squandered good opportunities for qualifying already. Germany definitely doesn't look good, but still have it in their own hands. They have a final. As I said, we also have a final between Austria and Bosnia, but then I'm looking at Portugal and Belgium, who just needed wins to get it done and cannot get it done. And for Portugal, this was a rather damning loss as well. One thing is for certain, well, this was actually more exciting than I expected it to be. I mean, all 3 match days had real storylines. And I have not even talked about Africa and Asia and especially the craziness that happened in CONCACAF. I mean, in CONCACAF, we could get in some teams that we would not even have considered that they will make it to a World Cup. It's that crazy there. So it was more exciting than I would have expected, but I have to say the build-up, especially for certain groups, it's always happening in Europe, was not that great. And there has been some criticism coming, especially out of Italy, who just, and I'm a huge fan of the Azzurri. But honestly, yes, it seems a little bit unfair that you're winning every game but one, and that one was against Norway, and that Gattuso is still having only win, but there was always kind of an hopelessness, because whenever you had kind of the upper hand, Norway came in with an even bigger result. So I understand that they are a little bit hurt and that they feel as the status as Italy, you should be the World Cup, especially the expanded World Cup. But I have to counter that one, because I hear then arguments like, and especially Gattuso really didn't shower himself in glory and say, we have so many African teams. And when I played, there were less African teams. Africa has almost as many federations as UEFA. And yes, the African teams are maybe not as strong overall as the European teams. And there are multiple reasons that we don't need to go into for now. But it doesn't mean that we should take away the African qualification spots, that Italy should have a shoe-in into the World Cup. Also, another argument that I heard from a podcaster on all things Italian said, it seems so unfair. We have 6 wins out of 7 and we have to go into a playoff, and then Brazil have lost however many games and are not making it. Well, you also have to consider the quality of the opposition. And qualification formats are different between UEFA and CONMEBOL and CONCACAF and so on. I actually think that the UEFA format is not that bad. However, I also think it needs some rejigging, because now if you have so many teams and yes, you have it shortened, blah, 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 it seems a little bit blah. Especially the early stages were not so exciting, and mixing it in with the Nations League made it probably more complicated than it needed to be. I remain the suggestion, how about? And I know, hear me out there, I know many will hate that, but how about? Let's give the teams from Nations League A, the top 3 in each group, a spot at the World Cup. Then, for the final spots, I think Europe has 16. You can have the group winners from League B, and the group winners from on the last place teams from Group A, they can play a playoff. This would be relatively easy, and there's also merit based. It also would boost the Nations League even more. If you want, you could do also playoff between group winners of League C and B and C, but that's happened, then the winner plays. But the one thing that UEFA should get rid of is this one-legged playoff system. I know it's exciting, but it's not fair. You want to have your best teams there. I do agree that I think for UEFA it's probably better if Italy is taking part at the World Cup then let's say, and I'm no dissing because the story is great, but I'm just taking the smallest conceivable country that is in the playoffs, then for instance Kosovo, if they should make it. Yes, this would be an amazing story, and their story is absolutely amazing if you look at the qualification, so I'm really not taking anything away. However, Italy has a chance to probably do a little bit better than Kosovo, and therefore giving UEFA a better chance of saying, actually we would need a few more spots for qualifying. That is the reason. This is all sports politics. UEFA will not get many more spots because it is in the interest of FIFA to have as many teams as possible present. Okay. Long story short, let's review all the action on Thursday, Friday and Saturday. If you're watching this on YouTube, I had some calculation errors this morning. I played around and suddenly some numbers are really off. So I've decided instead of figuring this one out, I want to get this video out, and I really hope that my internet connection is holding up. I want to get this out so you will only see results, but I'm anyway describing to you what's happening, and I think that should give you a good idea. And at the end, I'm anyways also summarizing what games are worth watching come Sunday, Monday and Tuesday. I would argue that Thursday was one of the crazier World Cup qualifying days that we had over this past year, with action all over the continents. And I actually want to start first outside of Europe, because I think it's had a little bit more impact than what was happening in Europe, although even that was very much news making. So we have to talk, of course, about these two, but with Friday and Saturday also coming. Let's do first the outside of Europe stuff. The one thing I didn't really see was the Asian round 5 first leg of to get into the intercontinental playoff between the United Arab Emirates and Iraq. It ends in a 1-1 draw. Iraq took an early lead. It was then 8 minutes later equalized by the UAE, and yeah, it goes back to Iraq, and they are now considered the favorites there. So not much that I can tell you there, but I can tell you a whole lot more about what's happening in Africa. I mean, Nigeria against Gabon, that was a really exciting matchup, and it could have swung either way. I mean, it was not great game per se, but it really then took the next level when early in the second half there was a clear short pull from a Nigerian player, and for some reason the VAR took really a long time to review what's happening there. The penalty was not given. A major letter for Nigeria. Yes, maybe the Gabon striker made a little bit more out of it than was needed. He also may not have really gotten to the ball, so maybe this could have been part of the weird decision, let's say it, but still, I would have given here a penalty, and I think in Europe this would have been given as a penalty for certain. So big letter for Nigeria, who then take the lead after a really badly placed back pass, and Adams gets in between, runs the goalie and puts it into the empty net. And you really had the feeling, with so little happening, unless you consider Osihem missing plenty of chances, that this is going to be it for Nigeria. There was not much then coming from Gabon anymore. However, whenever the ball then went towards the Gabon half, they also couldn't, to the Nigeria half, they also couldn't really calm it down. And then in the end it's Lemina who takes a shot that is wickedly deflected into that 89th minute. And Gabon have leveled the score. And this should have gone to overtime, but it was a lengthy stoppage time period where Osihem had a 1-1 with the goalie. He cannot even hit the target. And this was then also continuing that he had already missed a big chance before he had missed this chance. So you really thought, oh, this is not Nigeria's night. But then in overtime, Nigeria again are the better team. Ejuke in the 97th minute give them the lead, and then Osihem finally gets his 2 goals. Nigeria through with a lot more trouble than you would have expected. But they're on to the final, where they will meet the DRC. And the DRC played against Cameroon, and I have to say both of these were played in Morocco in the driving rain. The DRC were the better team throughout. Cameroon was shockingly bad. I mean, again, typically African soccer in a way was not the greatest of games, but still, I would expect more from Cameroon. Now I can see why they finished second behind the Cape Verde. And then it's Mbemba who deep in stoppage time. I think they already thought they had scored a goal. It was then disallowed for offside, and there were plenty of chances for the DRC to decide this game sooner. But Mbemba in the 91st minutes gets the job done and sends the DRC through to the final against Nigeria, where of course Nigeria will be the favorite. But you know, it's tight enough that one can see it going either way. And for Nigeria, again, major let-off that the format worked in their favor, that they actually could make it into there. Now they're showing that they're probably the biggest team that's left in the playoffs. And if they should make it to the intercontinental playoff, I would consider Nigeria a major favorite to making it to the World Cup. Cameroon, another big nation, out. Not at the World Cup. And yeah, let's see if the DRC can give Nigeria a little bit of trouble. And then we have to talk about pure CONCACAF madness. I mean, at the moment, it could be only outsiders going to the World Cup, and it's quite realistic that this will happen. I would say that at least one outsider will make it, and so all my efforts of buying up CONCACAF shirts of teams that might qualify might be eventually futile as well. If we start out in Group A, Guatemala lose at home to Panama 3-2. However, Suriname beat El Salvador 4-0. So based on goal difference, it's now Suriname who have a 3-point cushion over Panama. However, now Panama will host El Salvador and Suriname have to go to Guatemala. This will go down to the wire. It may well come down to goal difference. So really interesting stuff happening there. Then in Group B, the big one, Jamaica, drop points at Trinidad and Tobago. Trinidad and Tobago, yes, have lost once, drew 3 times, so that's a really dicey one. But Curaçao at the same time went to Bermuda, beat them 7-0. So Curaçao enjoy now a 1-point lead over Jamaica. Jamaica will host Curaçao in the last match. Curaçao have already beaten Jamaica at home. Jamaica will need to win this one, otherwise Curaçao are through. Another big surprise, another team that could make it. And then there's a little matter of Haiti beating Costa Rica 1-0. That is something I did not expect, and Haiti actually looking in a pretty good shape at this moment. Honduras also managed to lose 2-0 at Nicaragua. So Honduras and Haiti are now level on 8 points, and given that only the 2 best runners-up will make it into intercontinental playoff, only one team is likely to qualify out of these. And so yeah, we have on the last match day Costa Rica hosting Honduras, and yes, if Honduras should win that one, they have a shot because goal difference is still 2 ahead of them. However, Haiti also hosts Nicaragua, the last place team, who have not much to play for. So it is not inconceivable that Haiti will also qualify for the World Cup, and Honduras and Costa Rica are out. And I would have said at least Costa Rica should have made it to the World Cup. There is true jeopardy there. But there was also quite some drama in Europe happening on Thursday evening. But let's do the least drama first. France beat Ukraine at home 4-0. It took the second half, it took a Mbappé penalty, but then all floodgates open and France are through to the World Cup. So the second team from Europe to qualify after England, and Ukraine are now falling level on points with Iceland, behind Iceland due to the goal difference. Iceland actually did get a 2-0 away win at Azerbaijan. However, Ukraine will host Iceland. We know that this game is not being played in Ukraine, of course, but with a win, Ukraine are through. A draw, though, is enough for Iceland. So that is also something to consider here. The biggest drama then definitely came in Group F, where Portugal squandered their second match point, if you would like. Remember, Szoboszlai got the equalizer in Portugal, the last international break, to deny Portugal the direct qualification. Now Portugal go to Ireland, and Troy Parrott is really ruthless, scoring 2 goals in the first half, and Ireland fully deserving it. I mean, Portugal had all the possession that you would like to have, but it was rather empty possession. And again, questions have to be asked of Martinez as the Portugal coach. Is he squandering another golden generation like he did with Belgium? Although I think he did with Belgium decently enough. But this Portugal team would probably deserve a slightly better coach and slightly better balance. And can I just say, why is Rafa Leão sitting on the bench and João Félix and Ronaldo up front? I mean, as a Milan fan, I'm major. I mean, on one side I'm relieved because Rafa Leao will stay fit, but it's actually an affront to the greatness of Leao, at least over Joao Felix. I mean, I could maybe see a point being made about Ronaldo starting, although I still think he should be substitute player. But it's Cristiano Ronaldo who is the biggest story, who elbowed an opponent in the box from behind. Clear red card, and it was given on the VAR. And Ronaldo's gesturing, I mean, it's so childish. Like he is, I didn't get a red card. And then the Ireland fans, of course, replicated one once the red card was shown. And Ronaldo just, great, you did this. I mean, I know there was previous that the defender that he elbowed, he basically celebrated in his face when they beat Ireland in Portugal. So there was previous there, and there were some, comments about the refereeing and so on. But still, you need to be above this. I mean, you are the leader of this team. You take up anyway all the air in the room. Absolute childish stuff right there from Cristiano Ronaldo, who now, and that's the big fear in Portugal, will probably miss at least one game at the next World Cup. Likely two, because this was violent conduct. He should be out for 3 games, I would think. So yeah, not looking good for Portugal in that sense, and honestly not looking good because I think that Roberto Martinez needs to be replaced ASAP. There are so many good Portuguese managers out there. Yes, they probably have all some good jobs, but I would get one of those in and not this Spanish transplant. It also seemed like Norway showed a little bit of nerves against Estonia. It was a draw at halftime, but once the floodgates opened and Norway run away 4-1 winners, meaning they have virtually qualified. Italy, a labor 2-0 away win, and Moldova, the goals coming really late through Esposito and I think Mancini, who opens the scoring, and then Esposito adding a second one. But it was a rather flat performance by Italy, who knew they have not much to play for. I mean, yes, they are 3 points behind Norway. They played Norway on the last match day at home at San Siro, which is never a good sign for Italy, to be honest. They need a 9-0 win in order to qualify directly and catch Norway. Not gonna happen. Absolutely not. No, not gonna happen. I mean, this will be a glorified friendly, and while it might be good for the psyche for Italy if they could beat Norway, I don't think they will even beat Norway. So Italy also for sure already in the playoffs. However, as we said, seeding will probably be in their favor. And then lastly, already qualified England beat Serbia 2-0 at home. Also, performance not much to talk home about, except that England have a perfect qualifying record, have not even conceded a goal yet. That is rather amazing, but all the talk in England is about will Jude Bellingham somehow fit into this team, and I can see the points why he may or may not in there. But this also tells you how easy qualifying was for England so far. It was also a damning loss for Serbia because paired with the win of Albania in Andorra, this means Serbia out of qualifying, Albania are in the playoff, and yes, Serbia did it themselves by losing to Albania in the last international break. But I think it's also quite a storyline that a talented team like Serbia cannot do more with the talent. On Friday, Croatia became the 3rd team from Europe to secure qualifying, which I think is rather remarkable for a small nation like Croatia to actually be the 3rd team behind England and France to manage that. True, it is due down to scheduling, and also true, we have to say, their group was probably not the toughest one. However, they qualified with a 3-1 win over the Faroe Islands, coming back from a 1-0 deficit in the 16th minute. And this was a game that actually meant something for the Faroe Islands. They needed to get something out of this match to have at least a shot to make it into the playoffs, and thus forced the Czech Republic to get a result on the last match day. Alas, it was not to be. Croatia do turn it around with Guardiol quickly equalizing as well in the second half. Musa and Vlasic scoring the 2 goals to send Croatia to the World Cup and the Czechs into the playoff. Faroe Islands still can be very proud of themselves. They finished the qualification campaign with 12 points. 12 points. That is really, really, really good for a small nation like the Faroe Islands. 2 second half goals by Nick Woltemade salvaged Germany's chances of qualifying at Luxembourg. It was a very shaky German performance that could very well have gone the other way, which is something that sounds unbelievable to say. The only thing that looks Germany in this match was actually the German jerseys, who are, the new ones are kind of a mixture between 2014 and 1990. It looked very much like these times. However, the German team on the field was nothing like that. As I said, 2 well-taken goals by Nick Woltemade salvaged Germany, and they have now a final at home where they only need a draw against Slovakia. A Slovakian team that had early trouble with Northern Ireland. Northern Ireland could, with some luck, take the league. However, Slovakia also hit once the woodwork in an affair that got tighter and tighter and tighter. And for some reason, Northern Ireland decided in the second half, we're happy with the point here. And I can see, they have to play Luxembourg at home. Maybe there was a good chance to actually make the playoffs this way. So it was Slovakia's onus to get it going. Slovakia had 2 goals disallowed early on in the second half. One by Skriniar, who was offside ahead of the goalie, and another one by Strelec, who, yes, it looked like a header at first, but then when you see it from behind the goal, the clear handball had to be called off as well. But Slovakia didn't have really an answer to the big defense by Northern Ireland. And, Northern Ireland with a win could have sent out Slovakia. But very late on, Beneš cross is put through to Bobček, and Bobček gets the winner for Slovakia. Then Ballard is sent off for an elbow, similar to Ronaldo's. However, it was only a yellow card, so yellow-red, not as bad. And therefore, Slovakia have the final against Germany. They are already secured a playoff spot, whereas Northern Ireland are out of World Cup qualifying. And now Leipzig, Germany, Slovakia. If Slovakia win, Slovakia through. Any other result will be in favor of Germany, who stumble through this qualification campaign. However, I would argue that the biggest match on Friday evening was between Poland and the Netherlands. It was a must-win for Poland to have at least a shot of making it to the World Cup. A draw already would have been enough for the Dutch, and it ended in a draw. However, I have to say, for all the possession that the Dutch had, they were toothless for most of the time. It was actually kind of a bad watch overall. I was really frustrated. Yes, you could see defensive and especially midfield, the Dutch are quite there, but offensive, they're barely anything. And the Poles were very good in defending and then hitting on the counter. And it was one of those counterattacks where Lewandowski on midfield basically makes a turn and sends Kaminski through on goal, and Van Dijk is not really reading that one. The goalie comes out also half-heartedly, and Kaminski has not really a problem putting it into the net. It was against the run of play at that time. I mean, early on, Poland had chances, but the Dutch were at that moment fully in control. So this was really a gut punch for the Dutch. However, they answer right after halftime with Depay getting the equalizer, and then the Netherlands knew a win and we're through it to the World Cup. A draw probably is quasi-qualification. But again, it's rather empty, and I always felt that Poland, if they did something, they were more dangerous than I think it was to the liking of the Dutch. It ends in a 1-1 draw. As I said, it's similar to Norway over Italy, a quasi-qualification for the Dutch. They have a 12-goal advantage over Poland. There's no head-to-head. Those were the 2 head-to-heads. Both ended in a 1-1 draw. And yes, the first one was rather flattering to Poland. But 12-goal advantage, the Netherlands host Lithuania. They will get this 1 point that will mathematically also secure qualification. Even if they should lose, Poland need to win big, and I don't see that happening. And lastly, I also need to mention that that group, although it was of no consequence whatsoever, Finland managed to lose 1-0 at home to Malta. Famous win for Malta, not so great for Finland, and with that, Poland is also secured of the playoff at the very, very least. Well, there's a certain rhythm to qualify teams from Europe over these first 3 match days. It's only one that can qualify every day. This one is Switzerland. We've also one nearly qualified, or quasi-qualified, in Spain, where goal difference is so humongous in favor of theirs that it's really hard to see them not qualify. And then there are plenty of teams that are so close or were so close, but it just didn't quite work out. And yes, one of those is, of course, my home country, Austria, who were actually quite good in Cyprus. I mean, it was not a great overall game, but was, just getting the job done. 2 goals by Marko Arnautovic, the first one for a penalty, which we this time don't need to argue. This was a clear penalty. Missed actually a couple of chances as well, and the Marko Arnautovic scores an absolute beauty of a goal, where he is sent, then, takes the ball back, defender flies by, goalie flies by and puts it into the net. This was a really nice goal, and from that moment on I didn't see much anymore because my internet connection completely collapsed. I hear there was one time the woodwork hit, but it actually gave me a little bit more confidence for this national team again, because this was a really routine performance without Alaba. That, I think, is a rather remarkable factor. And so all it needed in the evening was that Bosnia do not win at home to Romania, and they would have qualified on the plane back to Vienna. Alas, it was not to happen. Yes, Romania had a halftime lead, 1-0, through a actually nice played goal. Mihaila into the box, and then Billy Gea puts it into net, lobbing the goalkeeper in the process. And I thought in the first half there was a little bit more coming from Romania. However, in the second half, Bosnia really turned the volume up, if you would like, and put Romania on the back foot. Edin Dzeko, who else, immediately equalized at the start of the second half. Then the game was at one time really threatened to fall fully into Bosnia's hand, but Romania actually could stabilize that. And then came the substitution and the action that changed the game. Draguš came on, and then just 2 minutes later sent off with a straight red card with a really high boot into the face of someone. Yes, there was a ball there. It was not malicious, but it was way too high, studs into the face of the Bosnian player. And yeah, unfortunately, this is a red card. We can look at it as many times as we want. It remains a red card. And then the writing was on the wall. I was hoping that Romania can hold out, but then, and I'm going to butcher the name probably, but it was a brilliant goal by Ratkarevic that settles the deal for Bosnia. An absolute great shot. He just runs along the edge of the box and unleashes a shot where no one can get to. And then there was not much coming from Romania, and Tabakovic adds a third one. And so Bosnia have a final in Vienna. The situation now is, of course, that Austria only need a draw. I don't think Austria will play for a draw, but Austria only need a draw to qualify. A win will see them through. If they lose, then it will be Bosnia and Austria will go into the playoffs. Otherwise, it will be Bosnia in the playoffs. So those two will in the playoffs, and Romania also will be in the playoff. And crucially enough, now Romania doesn't need to win against San Marino by a whole lot, because San Marino are out. They cannot make it into the playoff anymore. Belgium had it in their own hands to qualify early on, already on Saturday. It was a 3 o'clock kickoff. We know Kazakhstan, time difference, and so on. However, Kazakhstan is not a team that you take on easily. They can actually threaten you. And Satbayev gave Kazakhstan already a 1-0 lead in the 9th minute. That was not undeserved. Kazakhstan were well in the game, however, right after Hans van Aken equalizes. And then, you could see that Belgium were pushing for that winner. That would have sent them to the World Cup. But they got quite some counter from the Kazakhs. And so it ends in an almost logically 1-1. Even when Chesnokov got sent off, I actually felt that the Belgians are a little bit decreasing in their form. The one thing, though, that I have to say, and I didn't believe it when I just saw the pictures, the Belgian kit, with the black pants, that is an absolute winner. If they just would be able to have a flag collar or whatever, this would be an absolute stunner. But this is a great, great Belgium kit. Wales then proceeded to win 1-0 in Liechtenstein, and so we have now in that group Belgium 2 points ahead of North Macedonia and Wales. With Wales hosting North Macedonia, hoping for a playoff spot, Belgium play at home against Liechtenstein, so this is where Belgium will settle it. So it's between Wales and North Macedonia for the final playoff spot. Unbelievably, Spain are not qualified yet, even though they're playing an even better campaign than England, because not only have they yet to concede a goal, they almost got as many goals as England, 19 as compared to 20, but they in only 5 games as compared to 7. So in a way, Spain should already be through. In a way, Spain are already through. And what's even better than England for Spain is that actually they do it in a convincing way. They go to Georgia, and again, they knew they need to bolster their goal difference, and Oyarzabal in the 11th minute converts a penalty, Zubimendi in the 22nd doubles it up, and Ferran Torres in the 34th, so almost an 11-minute ridden, completely destroy Georgia. So this was rather easy, and then Oyarzabal adds a second one in the 63rd for him, and the 4th on the night for Spain. Spain have an unbelievable plus 19 goal difference. Why they're not qualified yet? Because Turkey also beat Bulgaria. It was only a 2-0. So again, Spain put 2 more goals in there. Turkey have a goal difference of 15-10, so plus 5. So they would need to make up the 12 goal difference. They would need to win in Spain by 7 goals or more. And in a way, this is kind of poetic because, you know, they lost to Spain 6-0 at home. So if you really wanna beat Spain and get them out of their fixed World Cup spot, you need to come up with an even better performance in Spain. Otherwise, it's not gonna happen. Spain are terrific. And that's without Lamine Yamal even. So I think this Spain team has to be considered at this point one of the biggest favorites to win the upcoming World Cup. Not that they will, but it's rather impressive what they're doing. Okay, finally, let's get to the qualifier of the evening, which is Switzerland. Unbelievably. I'm honestly, as an Austrian, looking quite enviously at Switzerland because they have been very consistently qualifying for World Cups. And here, once again, and overall, if you look at the overall picture of that group, they did this actually quite in style. Although there were some nervy moments. Sweden also playing in their new jersey, which looks decent and under Graham Potter now, were completely outplayed by Switzerland, at least in the first 15 to 20 minutes, where it was Mbolo that gave Switzerland the lead. However, credit where credit is due. Sweden could settle down the game, and then Nygren got the equalizer in the 33rd minute. There were then some nervy moments for the Swiss. The game completely came almost to a standstill if it wasn't for a bad back pass that sends Mbolo, and then goalie Johannesson takes him down in the box. Yes, Mbolo was looking for that contact as well, but there was really not much you can say. This was a foul, and it was the really horrid back pass, and the penalties are converted by Xhaka in the 60th minute, and from that moment on it was Switzerland only. Sweden did not have the resolve to recover from that one. There was another bad back pass where then Johannesson actually saved with his head before Ndoye makes it then 3-1, and then in garbage time Manzambi adds a 4th. And you know what's the crazy part about this group? Is that neither Slovenia nor Sweden are in for a playoff spot, at least as qualifying in second place. No, it is Kosovo who go to Slovenia and win 2-0. This to me is one of the biggest stories that we're having at the moment in Europe. Sweden, though, have the back door through the Nations League, so Sweden will be in the playoff and a potential opponent of Italy. And then we have the mad Group C, where it's between Denmark and Scotland. Who will go to the World Cup and who will go into the playoff? Ahead of that match day, Denmark were level on points with a home against Belarus. A Belarus team that they beat, I think, 6-0 away from home. Yes, neutral ground, blah, blah, blah. And Scotland had to go to Greece before they have a head-to-head at Hampden. And it seems like none of them wanted to qualify. At one point, we had, curiously, Denmark took the lead, however, suddenly 2-1 down to Belarus, where at the same time Scotland were 3-0 down in Greece. However, 2 minutes after the 3-0 was scored, Scotland rallied and got 2 goals back, I think, through Doak and Christie, whereas Denmark also managed the equalizer. At that point, Denmark had a single point ahead of Scotland. Scotland, despite even a red card for Bakasetas, cannot manage an equalizer. They didn't even have the huge chances, I have to say. I actually watched in the final minutes of that game. Whereas Denmark were pushing to get the win, because a win would have been gold for them, because that would mean a 3-point cushion over Scotland and superior goal difference. But alas, it was not to happen. It was only a 2-2 draw. And so we have the final. Should Scotland beat Denmark on that final match day, Scotland are at the World Cup for the first time since '98, similar to Austria. Denmark need a draw. So, with all the action behind us, let's actually look a little bit forward and see what are the matches that are actually worth watching. Sunday, 8 o'clock, is Nigeria against the DRC for the final spot in the Intercontinental Playoff for Africa. It's not the final spot, sorry for saying that. But I think that is the one that takes center stage for me. In Europe, I think the Hungary-Ireland game at 3 o'clock, and my video might not post on time, is definitely one worth watching because it's for the playoff spot. It is the final. Ireland actually could do something there, and if Portugal should slip up against Armenia, I actually don't think they will, then I think Portugal is also interesting. Other than that, Ukraine, Iceland, who will go into the playoff, might be of interest. And if you must, Italy, Norway. Will Italy win against Norway 9-0? Not gonna happen. But it might be interesting to see what's happening. But this is a glorified friendly to me. Then on Monday, I think it's all about Germany, Slovakia. Everything else, Netherlands will get the point against Lithuania, blah, blah, blah. Germany, Slovakia. That's the game to watch, and you can second screen something else. Then Tuesday actually has quite a few finals. We have first Iraq against the UAE for also an intercontinental playoff spot for Asia. Draw from the first leg, so it's pretty clear. It's basically a final for that. For me, it's all about Austria against Bosnia. 8:45, Austria need to avoid defeat. I really hope they get that one done. But then there's also the final between Scotland and Denmark at the same time. So this will be my second screen. That much is also for certain. I think Spain against Turkey is a final, but a little bit like Italy-Norway. In this case, Spain just need to avoid being defeated by 7-0. Yeah, we know how this is going. I think Spain will give Turkey a whooping, and I don't think Spain will even concede a goal, to be honest. And then we should know already most of the teams that are in Europe. I will try my best to make a review video of this on Wednesday morning, or lunchtime or something like that. And then we will also have a reaction video probably on Friday on the playoff draw for UEFA before we fall back into everything that is club soccer. We'll see about that. In any case, I really hope you enjoyed this rundown. And again, if you're watching this on YouTube, yes, and you see me this time. It was not an audio only. I'm sorry for the lack of graphics. I just thought it's more important to get the video out than to have it all correct. And yes, this was a really hard decision on my part because I'm a little bit of a perfectionist when it comes to these things. In any case, please leave a comment below. Which match did you enjoy the most and which one are you looking forward the most in these upcoming 3 days? Also, give me a thumbs up if you enjoyed this video, leave us a subscription and tell somebody else that we can grow football talk in my soccer universe. Be it as it may, I will talk to you soon about more things in my soccer universe. Bye!